want to talk about another ship that people can go and see right now. Well, not right now because of the pandemic, but normally you can roll in Salem, down in the harbor on the wharf, and you can go see the Constitution. Mm-hmm. The Constitution is another ship that, now that Constitution's been up and down from the bottom of the sea more times than you can imagine. It's sunk in the harbor like more than once.
Oh, wow.
But it's a particularly interesting ship in terms of its indestructibility, and it's purported to also be haunted, the Constitution. I've been on board, but it's been a lot of years. I didn't get on board the last time I was down there, which was about 7 years ago. But I was on it numerous times as a kid. We used to spend a good chunk of our summers in that direction when I was a kid growing up. And it's a really neat old ship, but it's actually called Old Ironsides because it was made from live oak. And live oak is a particular type of oak that's partial to only the south of the United States. So anywhere I'm in the south, and generally it's the trees that we associate in places like New Orleans or Savannah, Georgia, that are coated in Spanish moss, right? So they're these big ancient oaks. And that type of oak had the ability to absorb the shocks of cannonballs. They did not penetrate the walls of the ship. They literally bounced off because they had these 6-inch thick pieces of live oak between the thing. So it's another ship that's a really cool, it's got a very, what's the word I'm looking for? A very interesting history.
It has a lot of history to it.
The time that, it was on the water during the War of 1812. It was one of the key ships on the eastern coast of the United States that was trolling to keep the British away. So it has quite an illustrious record in terms of having actual encounters and battles, back and forth between it and other ships. So there's definitely some haunted tales attached to the Constitution, and that's one that people go and see.
One that
I'd like to go and see sometime is over in the UK. I think it's in Southampton. Is the HMS Victory.
I used to live in Southampton.
And the Victory was like the flagship of the Royal Navy during that age of mast and sail.
Yeah, during that's sort of the whole 1812. We were going to go on board the Britannia, which was in Edinburgh, when we were supposed to be doing our haunted tour there in the last fall. The Britannia is purported to be haunted as well, so that's another one. And of course, that's the Queen's ship, right? The Britannia. Now.
Right. Yes.
It's another royal ship that was more of a luxury yacht than anything else, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It didn't see any sea battles or naval fight. This was a luxury yacht belonging to the royal family. But it's still purported to be haunted too. So
that ties in nicely with something else that I had in mind. So you mentioned Southampton. I also know that's where Southampton was where the Titanic, left from. So what do you think about the Titanic? Do you think that, I've heard stories about objects from the Titanic that were rescued or saved, having some sort of, people believe, spirit energy or some sort of paranormal activity connected to those objects.
I have a piece.
Oh, look at that!
That was recovered from the debris field from the Titanic.
Oh, wow! Look at that! Oh, my goodness! I'm so impressed right now. Oh, my gosh.
Is this piece of coal haunted? I don't know. I've never investigated it. So
I know.
It's just part of my historical collection. But,
that's just perfect. That's awesome. I'm so pleased I got to see that.
It comes with a little certificate of authenticity. And
Oh, that's great. I'm so excited right now. That's just totally made my day because I think that's great. Yeah, I managed to go to a Titanic museum, and it's all very sad. And yeah, they had objects too, but yeah, I didn't hear of anything that was haunted there. No one was complaining about that. So
Yeah.
but I imagine.
So this brings us into the Queen Mary.
Yeah.
Because Queen Mary is the only ocean liner of that vintage related to the Titanic that still exists today.
Oh, okay.
The Olympic was scrapped, I think. The Queen Elizabeth, caught fire in Hong Kong Harbor. The Britannic, which was another of the Titanic ships, or the White Star Line ship.
Right.
It either hit a mine or was torpedoed off the coast of Greece, which has still not been determined which one. You have the Lusitania, again, was torpedoed by a German submarine in World War I. So all the great transatlantic ocean liners are gone, except for the Queen Mary, which is now permanently docked in Long Beach, California.
Mm-hmm. And had a pirate festival on it numerous years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Friends of mine in California, they put a big pirate event on the Queen Mary.
Wow. That sounds exciting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different paranormal investigators that claim that the Queen Mary is, without a doubt, the most haunted ship.
Oh, I've heard it.
Now, I have never personally been to the Queen Mary, so I really have no opinion on the matter because I've not been there. But it was laid down in 1936, had its maiden voyage. That civilian transatlantic crossing did not last long because World War II came upon us.
Right, yeah. So
the ship was converted into a...
It was converted, It was retired from a pleasure vessel to...
and converted to carrying troops from North America over to Europe to fight in the war.
And there's actually a pretty famous photograph with like hundreds of
they're jammed in like sardines.
Queen Mary. Yeah.
And they approximately on each of these crossings, they had 15,000 soldiers.
Yeah, a lot
on the ship. And then on the return back to North America, they would load up on the Queen Mary all the injured and dying soldiers.
Yeah,
as well as German and Italian POWs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where there are stories of, there's a little girl that drowned in the second class swimming pool. They say her name is Jackie.
Yeah, there's actually too. I heard a story about that, and I didn't hear about a little girl, but a woman, like maybe 20-something woman who also seems to get up from the swimming pool and walk and leave wet foot marks, but there's no water in the pool. But how weird would that be, though? Let's just think about this for 1 second. You're a naval person or a soldier that's on board this ship going across the thing, and you're on this boat that is essentially was a luxury cruise ship, for lack of anything else. It's got a swimming pool. It's got, all of these strange, like, how weird would that be to be on a boat that had been repurposed, but yet those things were still there. I mean, they didn't get rid of them, right? The swimming pool was still there.
That's right.
The luxury berths were still there. They were probably used by the officers at that point, but it's just such a weird, a weird transition from a luxury cruise ship to a vessel that's, anything, I guess, that was needed. I mean, there was many ships even in the War of 1812 that were retrofitted from, merchant ships to... So, but yeah, the Queen Mary.
Well, I think that's where this haunted energy comes from on the ship, is from all these crossings of the soldiers. You've got this residual energy.
Though, right? I'm I'm going to say, because my friend, I was saying about this whole pirate event that took place on the ship. When she was on board the ship, she did not even mention any of that, but picked up on like other passengers, but like luxury cruise passengers.
Oh,
So kind of a weird, I guess it just depends on what energy you pick up, right?
But it seems that, all the paranormal investigators go there and they focus on this little girl, Jackie. And I've heard verified accounts from people that actually work on the Queen Mary that there is no documented evidence at all of a little girl ever having drowned in the second-class swimming pool.
I would not have thought that either, but there's been some pretty compelling. I've seen some pretty compelling footage of the footprints and that on people who have been on board and have left the cameras running overnight, and you see these wet footprints, and they don't look like a child. I mean, they're adult footprints. They're not a child. But there's so many stories tied to the Queen Mary, haunting Wizen. And because it's still in existence, you can go online and look up numerous people who have done paranormal investigations on board the Queen Mary, and a bunch of TV shows that have been there too, right? Doing paranormal investigations on board the boat itself too. But very interesting. I do want to mention we have 2 ghost ships.
Oh.
Sitting just off of Jordan, very close to us in Niagara. Those ships were actually originally merchant vessels that were commandeered or confiscated during the War of 1812, and became essentially, they're just sitting at the bottom of Lake Ontario, fairly intact to this day, due to a completely freak situation during the War of 1812. Had nothing to do with the war and everything to do with the weather.
There was a storm.
The Hamilton and the Scourge